All right. I put it live just so we can get the links out.
I put it live and you're just staring at it all crooked.
People want to see the.
And you're also never gonna do this right. Take your sunglasses off. That helps. Let's go back a little bit. Everybody, I'm gonna share this out to some people.
Is that Jan? I can't read the comments. I just saw.
Welcome.
I can't read the comments because I don't.
Huh? Take your sunglasses off. Mind your business. All right.
Maybe I don't want people to see what I'm doing.
You look like you just got you're hungover or something. Maybe I am. How's everybody doing? We're back from Origins from last weekend, over the weekend. It was really awesome. Awesome to be able to go there and show people Alter Quest, show people a demo kit, show people Brook City, which we sold out of. We were there. What's up, Scotty?
Hey, Scotty.
All right. I'm just gonna share this out to
I don't have my computer or my
the Kickstarter comments.
my iPad. Usually I can follow along with comments and
no
also
comments,
share this stuff out, but I'm gonna have to rely on Adam to just narrate it all for me. Because you have my phone. I forgot to put this on Do Not Disturb. Do you think it'll mess up if I try to do that real quick?
I don't know.
If this goes down, I apologize. Do Not Disturb. Check. Is it still working?
It's fine.
Okay. Do Not Disturb.
I think it is.
I'm being self-conscious about my hair. That's why I'm wearing a hat. I need to get a haircut.
All right. Shared it to the Kickstarter page. And I think we're good to go. So yeah, talking about Origins, we got a chance to show off the demo kit to lots of people. There were tons of people there who didn't even know about Alter Quest, which was awesome. So we got a bunch of new people checking it out. There were people there that had seen the Kickstarter and they were waiting, like, oh, I'm watching it. We have a lot of people watching the Kickstarter, a lot. So the last 48 hours could get pretty crazy, hopefully. But we had several people that came to check out the demo. They ran through a couple turns, and some people, pulled their phones out and they backed it on the spot. Lots of people, said, "Oh, my Wi-Fi's terrible, so I'll have to back it when I get out of here." But it went really well. It was awesome. It was great to actually have people get to check it out in person, because it's hard to convey a new game to people.
Is it
on a
noon
Kickstarter
already?
page? It is noon now.
Okay. Well, in case you think of any other topics, I'm keeping a track thing here, so
Okay.
follow comments because I
am.
can.
Hey, Stefan.
So,
How's it going?
So yeah, we're gonna do we'll do Origins recap, like Adam's talking about Origins a little bit, our experiences there, our plans for conventions. Also, we're gonna talk about encounters today because encounters are something people ask about in the Kickstarter comments a lot. We like to kind of give some. While we want to keep some of that like a surprise because, like we mentioned before, the Runes of Arkenspire expansion is we want to have some surprises in there, but we know we have to also sell the product because people need to know what they're buying. So we want to kind of give some details about encounters as well without showing too much. So we'll talk about that today too. And then we're done with Origins. You can keep going with Origins.
Yeah, they're making fun of your sunglasses. Take them off.
That's fine. I'd like for the comments to be active, and I don't mind being the butt of those jokes. So, Origins. Did you
In
finish?
a recent interview, Brady mentioned he liked the European Power Metal. They want to know what your favorite bands are.
I'm kind of out of the loop. My favorite bands were originally like Rhapsody. Actually, Hammerfall was the band that got me into power metal really hard. Legacy of Kings was an amazing album. Rhapsody was another big one. Freedom Call is one of my favorites. I also like all the big ones like Nightwish and Ed Guy and there's Gamma Ray, Iron Maiden, the classics. I like a ton of power metal. My favorites probably the most persistent bands are like Rhapsody and Falconer. Freedom Call. Those are the big ones. So.
All right. Stefan wants to know some stuff about story mode. So story mode is a way to play the game. There's campaign mode and story mode. Campaign is kind of like make your own campaign where you link together whatever quests you want, upgrade your character like a typical campaign. Story mode is more fixed, like a narrative, like choose your own adventure mode, where you can kind of make choices and get cards and stuff that affect your next game. It's very, very scripted. We don't want to show too much of it because it's kind of a spoiler. We want to let you experience it when you get the game, but we are putting a lot of thought into it. Brady's been doing a lot of writing for it, and even just reading it makes me excited to play it.
There's a tough balance too, because we know people like narrative in games, and personally I struggle with wanting to have the narrative and the theme. But personally, when I'm playing a game, I don't want to spend too much time reading stuff, especially in group environments. And even when I'm playing solo, I don't want to sit there and read a lot of flavor, because I like reading in my spare time. I read novels and stuff, but I don't always want to read that when I'm playing a game. So I'm trying to find that good balance of like how much narrative to add. So we have plenty of narrative, but we might have to like scale some back. We'll see. We just don't want to be have it a whole like focus on reading through all this flavor and not actually playing the game.
Also, just a disclaimer before we get to it. I'm trying to catch up with a lot of comments, but we'll probably have to have a hard stop in about an hour and a half. It's probably the long we can do this because I have to take my daughter out to her mom. But just so you guys know, if we have to do a hard stop, it's not because we're just being jerks. We just have to do that. So about story mode, someone's asking what the relative size of the story deck is versus the Ark Spire expansion. The exact number of cards is still being decided because the story deck doesn't determine things and doesn't drive the whole story. The story guide drives the story. The story deck are things that can be introduced through the story guide. So
yeah, they also represent choices. They track information. So if you chose to interact with somebody a certain way, there might be a card in the story deck that represents that. So you put that into your journal just to track that's the decision you made. So the story cards are going to fluctuate a lot from story to story, and there's no real formula. It's just kind of, we're going to build them as we go. It's going to be very natural evolution. So we're not giving a fixed card count because we'll finalize development. We want to nail down all the decks first, all the main decks, fighters, quests, all those things.
It's not fighters, it's heroes.
Yeah.
For example, Huey, the guy that was unlocked in the Kickstarter, who's like a pretty important character, he is going to appear in a story deck as it could be a rival, it could be an ally. We're not going to tell you, but that's what they're used for. They're going to be used in the game, and they're typically a token if they're a special character. We didn't have the budget to put every single character as a miniature in the box, but instead of having a token on the board, we get a miniature now, and he is somebody who's going to be used in not just the base game, not just Runes of Ark Spire, but probably going forward quite a bit. So,
and depending on what story you're playing, you might have to track information, with tokens to represent where things are. And it's just cooler to have a miniature to represent that thing that's being tracked. Like, oh, Huey is in this part on this location. That might be a card outside of the game, but it's cool to track that information with a miniature instead of the tokens. So. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick before we get too carried away in the comments is when you're talking about Origins, you did mention we showed Ultra Quest and everything. Just a side note of just on the company in general, we managed to sell out of our stock of Brook City there. So we still have some Brook City remaining. We're bringing to Gen Con, which is probably going to be the remainder of what we have. So if Origins is any indication, Gen Con will be probably your prime time to pick up Brook City if you're there. But it's also pretty much,
we're gonna try.
It's pretty much telling us we'll have to reprint this game, and that'll probably be a Kickstarter down the line. So we're balancing out supporting these products, like for example, Street Masters, Brook City, in the future, Ultra Quest, and versus introducing new games. So we talked about having a new game Kickstarter in the fall. That could very well be a Kickstarter to support existing products. So we're kind of planning that out right now. But if anybody has feedback on those kind of things, if you're looking for new games versus supporting existing titles, that's what we like to hear back from. I'd like to hear people's thoughts about that, because I know it can be harder to sell a new game sometimes when there's a game you already like and you just want more content for it. So we'll have that discussion going forward. That's kind of our Origins.
It's kind of bugging me.
That was what kind of one of the big telling things from Origins was. Back to the comments there. I saw something about a second board, but was that after the story thing?
There was there's a few comments. Stretch goals are good, guys. Thanks so much. Thanks for we're trying to give people what they want. Try to give a little bit of something for everybody. We mentioned in the last designer chat how doors in Gloomhaven are similar, given players don't know what's ahead. However, that's designed to be balanced. How can you guarantee with balance with random doors? So I'm not sure.
First off, we don't ever guarantee balance. I mean, that's not our...
Well, we do, but we have balance. But we balance the quest as a whole. So it doesn't necessarily matter what order things come out in. It matters that they come out, you know. And like, for example, if we want something to come out like later in the quest, we will shuffle. Like, for example, in the cleansing, we tell people to shuffle the altar found card in the bottom 3 cards of the feature deck, so the altar will come out late in the quest. But the way the quest cards come out, we don't need to script that because it's up to the players how they explore, and the order in which they come out aren't as important as the quest mechanics as a whole.
Yeah, there's always a pacing that's implied with the design. For example, Gloomhaven is often brought up, obviously, because it's a dungeon crawler, and Isaac's involved in this project as well with expansion. But with Gloomhaven, you have the pacing of your deck. You're running out of cards as you go. That's kind of the pacing of the game. In our game, the pacing is more the quest deck and the villain deck, and you have these timers involved that are pressuring you to move forward. So that drives you forward to open doors, to explore new rooms. You want to explore rooms to find things that you need. So it's just it's a natural progression. It's a natural pressure you're gonna feel.
You, Arthur, asked second board. That's definitely been requested, and we did hint at Origins that is something that we might see in the stretch goals.
And this is something that too we want to make sure is clear. That's something we've always...
There's questions more about that,
okay.
So they can get into it. But like, I think that this, I guess we can address it now. But the board thing, for example,
it's always been a part of the design process. Yeah. We've always planned like, well, here's the board. If we ever want to do like a different board, even if it's just an aesthetic thing where we change up the shapes of the room, change out the layout, give it a new aesthetic appeal, like
it's always been the plan for the game.
Yeah.
Like we've always wanted to do things where this is a fixed board that can work for every single quest in the game. But if we ever do another board, that board also can be used for every quest in the game. So you basically just have more options, more modularity. That is your modular board, where it's like this, you know, you can use this cleansing quest with any board you have because it works with any quest.
And it was cool to give the base game board a kind of I never want to use the word generic because the people seem to use that as a negative connotation. When I use it more of like it's just overall useful. It's like I have a jack of all trades board because that board can represent so many different things. Yeah. It's very open to the imagination. But if we wanted to release a board that was very tuned to a certain aesthetic, like for example a ruined castle where the whole board is like different rooms of this castle, we could do that, and you could use that board, for example, in a very castle themed story you're playing through, where you might be visiting a lot of those places. So we wanted to leave that open for people's tastes, where it doesn't really matter the overall narrative being told because it'll fit in wherever you need to put it in. But if you want to elevate it to a certain aesthetic, then you can.
We've heard I've seen comments people saying we don't need a second board. You don't need any of these stretch goals. These stretch goals are all free bonus things.
That's the point of stretch goals is like, here's some cool rewards for helping us out.
We want to expand players' options, give people more things to do with the game. The base pledge value, we try to cram as much value into that as possible to get as much gameplay as possible. That way, nothing is relying on the stretch goals. The stretch goals are all just, here's some more stuff to play with, and you're getting free expansions, basically.
It's more just stuff for fun. Like the second board is more for fun, for whatever.
How different, Dr. Bams wants to know how different stories are from those in Street Masters. I would say very different.
A lot different, because Street Masters were meant to be episodic and customizable because you socket them in how you want. Stories in Alter Quest are a woven narrative where you make choices, and there's like, in some cases there are branching paths you can take. So when you replay, you might take a different path on purpose. Guide where you read these sections. And like I said before, we're kind of balancing about how to scale that back if we need to, because right now it is a lot of narrative because people have been asking for it. So I have a tendency to kind of like, go all out if we're doing something. So this is more like almost like a novella of flavor text to get you through the story. And they just kind of build these frameworks around just different ways to play the game, because essentially each quest within a story is just a quest that we dictate, here's how you set this up, but the narrative frames that. So it's essentially, you could be doing your own scenario building with all these materials. We just tell you, hey, put them together this way and do this one thing differently, but then the story deck frames that narratively so it falls into place with this overall story.
Any chance of another map as a goal or an add-on? I'm assuming that's about the board, which we just discussed. can we have an alt sculpt for Hero Mercenary? No, because the reason why we could afford to do back-to-back hero stretch goals is because it uses an existing sculpt. If we had to pay for a brand new sculpt. We'd also have to pay for a brand new mold. So we're trying to budget all these different things, but we also wanted to give backers the backers been wanting more heroes, and the mercenary made perfect thematic sense to be a hero because you can pay a mercenary to go do an
plus it's I mean a lot of these stretch goals come down to like what we want. I loved that art. I loved that character.
Honestly, we weren't playing it at all. Like we got the mercenary art as a threat, and we're like, okay, well this can be a hero.
Yeah, we saw several comments saying that mercenary looks awesome, and I agreed. I just liked it a lot. So like, yeah, I'll make a deck of that, and it made thematic sense too. So a lot of these things, why we do plan a lot of these out, some of these come up during the campaign, like that one did. And the other thing too is like with the heroes, people they obviously want more heroes, and I understand that. I mean, heroes are fun, but they're the single most expensive and time-consuming part. So we can't do a ton of heroes because not only is it the development time of building a deck for that hero to make them feel unique and cool. It's not just a hero sheet like some other games where you just socket in a miniature and a sheet. You have the sculpt to account for. Every single piece of unique art that needs to go into that deck. Each one has at least 10, 12 pieces of art total or something like that, plus the development time to develop all that stuff. So there's just a lot of expenses and time put into those hero decks for each hero stretch goal.
It's our own fault for designing these.
Yeah. We pretty much invite that, but at the same time we can't offer like 20 new heroes. And when we offer like you don't understand how painful it is to offer like a box of 4 heroes. It's like, it's cool and all, but it's like, oh god, this is gonna hurt.
Will you guys show us some more of your amazing art, please? It's so stunning, and can't wait to see the art for the heroes. Well, that's very refreshing to hear after seeing the complaints on board game.
Yeah, we see. There's a lot of opinions about art. It's it's a very personal thing. People have very strong opinions about art. You're not going to please everybody with art. I'm glad that you were enjoying it. We obviously like the art. It's a style we're enjoying.
That being said, we've already commissioned all the art pre-Kickstarter that we can afford to do. So the rest of it is going to be done after the Kickstarter.
So you guys are helping with.
We will continue to be showing art as like stretch goals are unlocked and stuff like that. But more art of the same stuff we probably won't be able to show until after the Kickstarter. And anybody who's backed Brook City or Street Masters, they know that we do at least once a month updates to give you progress reports when we throw in some new art and stuff like that. Question: are you doing any classic hero concepts like Old Sage, Barbarian, Savage, since you already have the Bilbo style Hobbit? We like to do twist some things.
I don't foresee doing a Barbarian, for example. And it's like this comes down to aesthetics. We want to appeal to a lot of people, but like in this setting.
Well, I mean, I guess people's opinion of Barbarian.
Yeah, it depends.
Like, we do have a hero in the stretch goals that people might say looks.
Might fill that role.
Yeah,
but it's not like the Hero Quest Barbarian.
Not like a loincloth.
Not like Conan. It's just not our taste. So a lot of the stuff falls within what we want to build with the setting. So we do have versions of those things.
Yeah, like the hero pack, the first 4. Those are classically inspired heroes. And we have like the paladin type fighter guy. We have the mage,
the Lyth,
the bard.
Is it Lyth or Lith? The Lyth elf.
All right. Will future expansions add cards to existing decks? Example given: additional cards for Cedrin's hero deck, or more cards for the Frox threat deck?
Probably not.
So for example, enemies can easily have cards in a story deck that specifically applies to them. So if you're playing a story that is building up to some big quest against the Froxer, for example, there might be cards in the story deck that specifically go in the Frox deck, but they're not like general use cards. They're for that story.
And if you are experienced with the game and you know that story and you've played through it, you might choose, you like that card a lot and you'll pull it out. Stories are the exception because stories can do so many different things, so we can't always predict what those are going to do because as the design takes off, we'll be able to do all kinds of new things with the story decks, and they're designed that way to kind of leave the path open for us to just kind of explore as we go. So those are always the exception, but we're not going to release like a second Cedrin deck because really we wanted to do a new hero. We like variety. That's the whole point of the MDS, so we don't want to keep revisiting the same stuff and like just provide more options for existing heroes. We'd rather have just new heroes to choose from. That's how we like.
But someday we might do some kind of like epic expansion that lets heroes choose roles or something. Like that they level up into, and they take on these really powerful roles,
which will probably be in a story deck,
which are like advanced classes or something. That's something that's doable, but we don't want to make it so like every hero we release expands the amount of things we have to expand in the future. So, for example, if we have like 20 heroes, you know, by the time we do an epic expansion, we don't want to do 20 separate hero upgrades there. We want to make it kind of balanced and, you know,
The
manageable.
keyword is socketable, like socket stuff in without having to like modify things too much. That's the goal.
Will everything fit in the main box? Any more add-ons coming? Excited for the game? No, the base game will be set up kind of. We've learned from Street Masters and, you know, obviously the Brook City storage system that did not live up to our expectations. We have our plans for making better storage in the game, but there's going to be the stretch goal box, which all the stuff will come in, like all the stretch goals will come in, and then obviously Ruins of Arc will have its own box, and the Hero Pack will have its own little box. But we are not planning on making a base game that's able to fit everything in the game. For example, for Street Masters, we did the Aftershock campaign because we wanted to do a collector's box, you know, a big box that can hold a lot of stuff. Maybe if Alter Quest is successful, we'll do that in the future. We have a storage system for it.
But you gotta understand,
but you will be able to fit a lot of stuff in the base game.
Yeah, we also face a lot of pushback on that too, because even when we introduced the Aftershock box, mostly it was pretty receptive, but there are people who didn't even want it at all. They don't care about that. They have their own storage solutions. So it's hard to kind of find that balance of like all-encompassing storage, because as these lines grow, we don't want to just provide like a temporary solution where it's like, here, this box will hold almost everything. Then you got to buy another one later on. So it's much more geared toward the core game. Will comfortably store the core game, and hopefully like the cards, for example, will all fit in a single box. You put all the cards together, but you might have to have, you know, a box for the cards and tokens and stuff like that, and then a box for the miniatures and the board or something like that. So we like to make it so you can condense down to like maybe 2 boxes. Maybe some people could probably fit in one box if they don't use the inserts as intended. So you never know, because I've seen people shove everything from Brook City into a single box, or the original Street Masters print run into one box. So it all depends on your taste of how you store stuff.
How did you get Isaac on board? Isaac lives not too far away from us, and
in our hometown.
Yeah, ever since his first Kickstarter for Gloomhaven, we met up with him to playtest it, and he wanted us to do like a scenario for it. But ever since then, we've playtested each other's games. You know, we had him come over to play Street Masters in Brook City. And we had him come over to play Alter Quest, and he ended up liking it. And so we asked him if he wanted to, you know, do like a little expansion for it for the Kickstarter. He said sure. So that's kind of how that came about. But yeah, we've known Isaac for years. So.
The fun fact was on Brook City, he was actually wanting to do an expansion for that as well, and we had one planned if we got enough funding. We didn't hit the funding tier that we would need to have another additional expansion, but yeah, Isaac was originally supposed to be involved in Brook City as well. So he's really receptive of the things we do, and we love to show him. We show each other's designs off, and we play each other's designs a lot. So he's a good guy to have around.
Is there any chance of finding a Spanish or other language publisher? I love this game, but I really appreciate some translation add-on because the language-dependent content, thanks. So that's a struggle for us as a small publisher. We've definitely had some partners interested in localizing like games like Street Masters or, and Brook City, stuff like that. But it's really hard with a new Kickstarter when you're a small publisher, because you have to manage just making the game in your own native language as opposed to all the other stuff. So we're getting to the point where we can start looking at that for Street Masters. It might be a while before we can get to that point with Alter Quest, unless something, I mean, if Alter Quest ends in like a ridiculously unexpected high, you know, total, who knows what could happen. But right now we're trying to make sure what we keep things manageable, and we can deliver consistently without over promising, because we actually had issues with Street Masters in Brook City where we said we would do translations on a volunteer basis, and when you're working with volunteers, you can't really demand things. You're just using, you know, their spare time and doing what they can because they're volunteers, and obviously people are upset that it hasn't worked out. We're being careful about it, and we're hoping to get there eventually. Will we see templates for cards for any of your games, for homemade stuff? We definitely plan to. I think it'll be a lot more likely to happen quickly when we have a full-time graphic designer.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, is because we have to commission graphic designers to do things, and so far the only commission we have bandwidth for is to do projects, like to do stuff for the factory. So we haven't yet had the luxury to have a graphic designer on board to just can do things like that. But for example, like the tail end of this year, you'll be seeing a lot of Street Master support. So it's very likely we could see some like Street Masters templates for our cards out there. So it all depends on, you know, the support the game gets, and also just our bandwidth for graphic design, essentially.
When can we expect news about your small scale exploration game? I'm not sure which one that is.
I think we were talking about a few different. I mean, we might have.
We have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the back burner right now. That might have been one. I'm trying to think which one that was. Oh yeah. No, that was actually a design that it had some exploration involved. I think they were talking about the old pictures I posted of the project explosion. So that's actually changed a bit. It wasn't really exploration driven. That game was the reason it kind of changed a little bit is because the exploration was that was there was a little fiddly and adding too many rules, and it wasn't really truly exploration. It was more just building a single map. So that's been kind of changed. But we have other games that'll kind of exploration in different ways. So that one has changed though. So now it's more of a fixed map thing, similar to Street Masters, for example. But we'll have more details about that probably toward the end of the year.
All right. What's that? Warlock does. I don't know what he was referencing, but the Warlock does something.
Warlock does.
Can the hero threats bill and feature from Runes of Arconspire be used? What are you doing? Be used right away from the start for the one-off adventures, or should they be discovered through the story of the expansion first?
You can choose that
aspects.
You can choose. You can choose to open everything you want. Like you can just choose to open the box, but like the idea being is you get the box and it'll tell you through the story what you're unlocking and the kind of the stories behind it and everything. So,
the threats, for example, the threat deck, what we've shown, those are going to be available because they'll be right off the bat. You'll see them.
It'll still be revealed through the story. Like that's the intention. I mean, we're teasing it, but it's the same thing of like you buy like we mentioned before, the Rise of Fenris expansion for Scythe. You could just, and I did this too when I bought it because I was researching it. I didn't really play it to explore, so I just opened everything up as I got it. So you can do that and just look at the modules you want to use, but the intent is like you'll play through a narrative to kind of unlock these things and see how they socket into your game. Most of the new content, like the new threats, obviously will just work like threats, but there might be a new rule introduced that they'll explain in the narrative. So
do you have a progress update for Aftershock? Very excited to immerse myself in the world for a while. Also, great campaign for Alta Quest. It looks fantastic. So
what was it?
For Aftershock.
Oh.
So for Aftershock, we actually are expecting soon like some pre-production samples. Like we've gotten like proofs of things that to make sure the print's right. We actually caught a couple issues, which is good, which is why we do proofing. So making sure it's even more perfect. But we expect to get some pre-production samples soon that we'll do like a live unboxing to show everybody to see what the final product will look like, and once it's approved, we can move on to mass production and get those games out as soon as we can. But yeah, expect an update soon. Watch Blacklist Facebook page. Brady and I will do like maybe a Facebook Live or a YouTube Live or something to do like an unboxing of some pre-production samples soon. So, of the pictures you showed in the Kickstarter updates, the miniatures seem to be white and quite glossy. Is that how they're going to look in the finished product?
Those are renders. Those are the
renders. They look glossy just to show off, the detail and stuff like that. But you can look at like our other games. Our miniature qualities get improving as we go. I think Aftershock is going to be quite a step up from the original Street Masters, but they're great plastic. They're not like white and shiny. If you're still missing something from Pledge, who's that right? Yeah, Blacklist Games chimed in there. Customer support at blacklistgamesllc.com if you have any issues with orders, things like that. King Bread is testing contrast right now. Cool. I love the Blue Lantern shirt. Thanks. Has Hasbro come after you guys for calling it Alter Quest the same way they shut down the 30th anniversary of Hero Quest? No, there's no reason to. It's a total. Just because it has the Quest in the name, there's lots of games that have Quest.
Yeah. There was like Rune Quest, and they don't have any rights over that. I mean,
Hero Quest specifically is a trademark name.
Yeah, and also when that company was presenting it as they had the game Hero Quest, like they weren't even just calling the game Hero Quest. They were saying we have Hero Quest.
All they had was like the license to use the name in Spain or something like that, like a specific country. So they did not have the rights to do it in the U.S. So it was a mess. But no.
Yeah, we have nothing to do with Hero Quest. So.
The only thing we have to do with Hero Quest is the fact that we wanted to do a fixed board dungeon crawl with furniture on it.
Yeah.
So. Any idea when Brook City expansion will be available? Thanks. They will be available at Gen Con, but we're gonna see if we have some stock to put up on the online store. It's all gonna be determined after Gen Con probably, because we're still dealing with all the fulfillment companies that have the product for Kickstarter fulfillment, and then we need to consolidate it. We're taking some to Gen Con, but we need to consolidate all the remaining stock to see what we have left, and then go online.
That was one of the revelations at Origins, because we had originally planned to put our additional stock in the web store, but given how fast it sold out at Origins and the fact that we're still finalizing some of the international fulfillment, we need to see how Gen Con goes with our stock, because we're not sure what we'll have available on the web store after the conventions. So yeah, it's kind of, we're wrestling with that now, because the Brook City print run wasn't like huge. I mean, the funding supported a print run that had a few additional copies after fulfillment, but those are going really fast. So we'll have to do another Kickstarter soon.
Being on your own as opposed to working for a big game company, do you find each is equally rewarding, or now that you have a few games in, the rewards of being on your own far offset the headaches? Yeah, I think that working for a small publisher like this one we're at right now, where we basically have almost a full control over the games we put out, as far as the game design, the stuff like the player experience. Obviously the benefit for working a big publisher is the reach. You can just design a game and then put it in retail stores. They do it for you. It's they have that distribution model set up and everything like that. So. But then again, you're working for a part of a big company where their overhead is bigger, and like you don't have a lot of control over like the schedule or what games you get to work on.
Yeah, the rewards are different, because there's like a personal satisfaction seeing something that you had so much control over seeing success. Like, for example, whenever I see somebody post a positive review of Street Masters or something, it just makes us like so happy. It's so rewarding. But at the same time, working for a big company like FFG, when we worked there, it was always rewarding, because every day you had a set of tasks and you complete, and like that led into a big project announcement and all this stuff. So there's different types of rewards, but overall, like the personal fulfillment, I think, is greater doing things like this, because we're so much more involved and in control of what we're putting out there.
And plus, we're helping build something. Yeah. Like that's exciting. Like, if you work for a big company, it's established. They have their set ways of doing things. We're a small publisher trying to grow, heavily relying on Kickstarter, but we're building something that basically how we want to do it. So it's exciting, and plus we get to pretty much do what we want to do, the games we want to do, which is awesome. Not a question, but I've been starting to run the numbers on AlterQuest after the $390,000 stretch goal. The base pledge with no add-ons has over 38,000 unique game combinations. Wow.
I like your math. Your math is fantastic.
That's kind of crazy. We never think about that kind of stuff when we're designing. We're just like, let's just make as much modular stuff as we can, and it always turns out to be tons of combinations. So
that reminds me, we'll discuss encounters hopefully before this is over, but that encounters thing might even throw a wrench into those numbers.
Yeah. Maybe I missed it, but who are the artists of AlterQuest, and how was the collaboration with them?
So the way the artists work with Blacklist Games is they have an exclusive studio, so there's no individual artists that their names can be revealed because of the exclusivity rights with that studio. Because obviously, if somebody likes an artist and they want to contact them, there could be problems with how that studio offers its services from its artists. So there's a lot of kind of anonymity, whatever that word is, with those kind of exclusive studios, and because of the just the partnerships involved. So that studio doesn't disclose the individual artists' names. It's just the art studio, but they pretty much handle all of Blacklist's art. So it's from everything from Street Masters to Brook City to Quest. It's the same art studio. Typically, there's, for example, Hennig does the board art for Brook City and Quest. And he's he's really well known. So,
all right. A question, a joke about Heroes of Terranoth expansions, trying to make us give clues. I'm gonna start telling people this actually. Like, if anybody is curious about Heroes of Terranoth expansions, I'm gonna tell you to email FFG, because we both want Heroes of Terranoth expansions as well, and it's selling pretty well, I'm pretty sure. So I'd love to see it expanded. We're more than happy to do it. We don't know what the plan is, but anybody who's interested should email FFG and let them know. Make sure they know that you want expansions.
I want to mention something about this too because I saw I follow FFG on Instagram and they shared an image for Father's Day, like a stack of games, some of their current
Just
games.
a few games.
Yeah, and Heroes of Terranoth was there. And I was like, oh, cool. And I looked at the comments and like almost every comment was somebody saying, "Where are Heroes of Terranoth expansions?" So yeah, keep that up because that's what they're going to notice. They'll see that the demand is there. So
yeah, and they're also obviously even if we didn't know what was going on, we can't say.
Yeah.
But you should always go to the source and let them know that the demand is there, and we're more than happy to design them. So, thanks. Keep up the great work. You guys rule. You guys rule. Will you be at Essen this year? Please say yes. There is talks.
Yeah, again, it depends on how this ends. And a couple other deals we have in the works right now because, like I said, you'll be seeing a lot of Street Masters probably toward the end of this year. We're going to be pushing that a lot. There's a lot of support for it. We have some distribution stuff in the works, so hopefully it'll be globally available. By well before Essen. But yeah, there's a chance. We just don't know how likely at this point. But I can't imagine we wouldn't make it there next year, if not this year, because the way things are going. But yeah, I'm holding out hope for this year as well.
If our games keep doing better as they are, like our Kickstarters keep getting progressively better, then yeah, it's very likely. Did Chernobyl inspire anything? Yeah, it inspired me to appreciate not living in a nuclear wasteland,
a nuclear fallout zone.
It's kind of that was a scary show to see.
It's a great show.
Played out.
Fantastic show.
Very good show. Did you manage to have fun at Origins, or was it all work? Any highlights? Yeah, it was fun. One of the highlights for me was the guys over at Chip Theory Games.
Yeah, Josh there, who I think they call him Gilly. He's the marketing director there.
Richie, and Bill. Was it Bill? I think it was.
Bill was one. Yeah, yes, Bill and Richie were the members.
They liked our games a lot and wanted to do some trades or whatever. So we got our hands on some Too Many Bones. Just played that.
Yeah, my daughter's really digging.
I can see why it's popular. It's a cool game. Definitely intriguing. I want to play it more.
Production is just
the production is insane.
It's ridiculous.
So I'm actually very impressed with what they charge for their game quality is off the charts.
Yeah, so we're really happy with their success because we're fans of their games, and we were excited to hear they're fans of our games. So we were working out some trades and stuff, and it was funny because Adam went in on the Kickstarter at the last minute, the last day after seeing the production. And I was tempted to, but then we go there and talk to them, and they're like, "Don't back our stuff. No, we'll work out trades or something." So they're really cool guys, and we were happy to meet them and everything. So that was a highlight for sure. And other than that, just getting to talk to people, show people Brook City. You would not imagine how awesome it felt. Just people coming up, passing. People who never heard of Brook City stopping to inquire about it because it looked cool on the table. They don't see that theme a lot. But also just people that come up and tell you, "Oh man, I love this game." They're trying to sell their friends on it. Like, "You gotta pick this game up." And we just blew through our stock. We're so fast. People were just so hyped on it, which is great.
Yeah, I think that it's always cool to see people, new players getting in your games and fans liking it.
Somebody's bored.
Yeah. Anyway, I just saw some spam comments here, trying to ignore them. But yeah, it's cool to see not just new fans of your games, but also talking to other publishers who are also fans of your games. So that's really cool. We got lots of message deleted. What obscure IP would you love to design a game for?
Friends. That's not obscure. For hobby gaming, it is, or Mr. Bean, maybe.
I don't like. It's weird because we like making our own IPs. Yeah. That's kind of what inspires us.
Was that obscure theme or IP?
Obscure IP.
Okay, because if it was an obscure theme, the sitcom thing is really what I would want to design this for. Because I have ideas how that would work. As far as IPs, like I think the most obscure, which isn't even that obscure maybe, but like I love Blaster Master, the old NES game, and the new versions they make, Blaster Master Zero by Inti Creates for the Nintendo Switch, which is a great system. I love that IP. I don't know how well it'd be transferring to a video game because it's a single player experience in the video game, but something like that I would love to do. I love that IP.
What part of Ultra Quest are you most proud of? I think.
So far, I think the quests are really
the way the Questx really cool. That's one thing that's hard to sell people on because I make the mistake of getting caught in these board game geek threads where people are like analyzing a game they haven't played yet, and kind of tearing it apart and stuff. And like, oh, you're just opening a door and killing monsters, like a dungeon crawl, you know. But the game Ultra Quest is not about just killing a bunch of monsters. You know, it's all about an objective you're trying to accomplish with obstacles in your way. You know, managing your actions and your deck and all that stuff. So I feel like we made an approachable game, but also a deep game with lots of options and players have lots of choices.
I think it's deceptive too.
It's also unique.
I think it's deceptive how much variety is there. Just because when you say one quest deck, it doesn't really convey what that means, but it provides a lot of value in like just that one quest deck. I saw somebody mention that their favorite game ever was Blaster Master, and I just wanted to say that's no, just recently, just like right now, Blaster Master something.
Lyle had said Blaster Master my favorite game of all time. I'm in that dimension.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out Blaster Master 0 and Blaster Master 0 2, check them out because they're even better than the original. They're incredible.
A sitcom board game, LOL? Yeah, we could totally kill a sitcom board game.
Yeah,
like people don't think that it would be interesting, but we could make it awesome.
If you replace combat with like conversation, like just because you're making progress in different ways, it's just I have really funny ways to make that work, and I think it'd be cool, but it's it'd probably be hard to get a following on.
What is more work to design, a hero or a quest? I think quests take more brain power. Heroes take more balancing and making sure.
I think more trial and error because you have to like differentiate them a lot. They have to feel unique.
And heroes typically need like one thing. They typically need one thing to play off of. Like, you know, for example, Cedrin, he plays off prayers. He's a healer. He has prayers and he can like manage his prayers. But like for a quest, you need to have like not just an objective, but also interesting things to do in every room, and also something that's some kind of pressure that's driving the heroes to finish the quest. So, I think quests take the longest to do probably. And plus, it's people always, you know, it's a deck of cards, but it's also that's the most development work I think is the quests. Plus one to Mr. Bean game. And now that music, you have to be quiet if you're gonna be in here, okay? You want to say hi? Yeah, there you can leave, okay? Is there genres that are way too crammed that you give up on right away, or mechanics such as deck building?
Oh, as far as like design from a design standpoint, or because I don't think
probably product standpoint. Like if we're gonna do a
okay.
game, like I don't think so. Because like, you know, for example, people always say there's tons of fantasy games out there. Yeah, it's a crammed market, but we still feel like we made a game that's unique.
And it's still I don't. People always say like, oh, there's tons of dungeon crawlers, fantasy dungeon crawlers. Like honestly, there's not.
The last one I can think of is Sword and Sorcery.
Yeah, there's not a lot of mainstream ones I know of. I mean, I see them pop up occasionally, and I know there's a lot in the archives and stuff, but I don't see a ton. So, but I mean, like I don't look at things that abstract, like that narrowly, because you know people always say I don't want another zombie game. That'll never make me not check a game out just because of a theme. I'd be like, all right, what's the hook behind
if
that?
It looks like just another zombie game, I might pass it up because like, oh well, this guy
even
not even original.
Yeah, but even that, like if I'll always at least look at like maybe what like at least one or two of the mechanical hooks are before I just kind of like oh whatever. I just can't. I can't think of, except for maybe Euros. Like there are some Euros. If I look at the cover of a Euro game, and I think I just know exactly what I'm to expect out of that, then maybe I can.
I also don't think the mechanics play a part of it because we don't ever go into a game saying let's make a deck building game. We always go into a game saying we want to make this experience. What kind of mechanics can we use to best bring that theme out? You know. What about the Mad Max IP? MDS looks made for it. Neither of us are really huge Mad Max fans. Like I like the new movie.
But there's some kind of crossover with like we have a game idea we're working with.
Yeah, we always get mad when people.
Yeah, because I don't like to call it Mad Max. Is people that have that very specific like. I don't know. When I think of Mad Max, there's two things I think of. Like I think of a Motley Crue music video, which is like more like what I would envision a Mad Max. You know, like what my more tasted like. Or there's like the new Mad Max, which is cool and all. I just have no desire to work in a dirty sand, IP like that. I have a different vision of what it would be. So,
black plastic rings for the heroes, especially now that we have a sweet double agent, aka mercenary. I don't know, because every time we do an add-on that's a new SKU we have to manage, and also making sure that enough people are going to buy it, and I don't think enough people are going to want to buy.
Yeah, we'll mention it though because we slipped some into Brook City without it being a big deal. They just threw some in just in case people wanted to use them. So it's not out of the question, but at the same time,
I mean, the only time it would ever become an issue is if you're playing the mercenary hero and happen to draw the mercenary lurker. And
but doesn't she remove the mercenary lurker from the lurker deck?
She could.
I thought that was that. Well, is she coming with an extra figure?
Yeah.
For some reason, originally we talked about making it so you just pull the lurker figure out.
And, no, it's an extra figure.
Okay, no, I just originally talked about that.
If you say that, you're going to confuse people, so they're going to quote it. But yeah, you can either take them. The lurkers are always optional, like which lurkers you use, so you can easily just remove the lurker from that deck if you don't want to deal with it. But typically, lurkers don't last long anyway, so it's up to you. I don't think it's an issue because if you're playing the threat deck, all the enemies are going to have the colored bases. The only issue is ever going to be the hero and the lurker together, and also there's also the odds of, are you really going to draw that lurker in that game? So, I think a sitcom board game sounds awesome. I love the new themes for games that aren't done a million times. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
I wish that was the case for everybody.
Sometimes people are like, they want that familiar theme.
Because this is our best performance on Kickstarter yet, and it's fantasy, which people said, oh, fantasy's overdone. So it's hard to say. It's people say they want something different, but then the masses come flocking when it's something that's not too different.
How do you go about playtesting Alter Quest? Do you focus on certain elements per session? Do you just go for it and see what stands out? So early on, you kind of focus on individual things to make sure they work. But at this point, after the Kickstarter, we're just going to be playtesting everything, as much as we can. Just making sure we play as many different combinations and giving it to our playtesters and say, hey, play as much as you can. Let us know if there's anything that... The two biggest things are for us for feedback is, does it make sense? Was anything broken or unplayable? And was it fun? The whole finding a perfect balance is not our main concern because it's a co-op game, heavy theme, lots of different combinations. Some things will be easier than other things. It just happens.
When we say a perfect balance, it's like mapping out the odds and things like that.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We don't bother with that. What we want to do is create challenge and making sure everything functions as intended. That's the biggest part because we don't want to have a card come out saying, oh, how does this interact with this? So that's the tricky part, is avoiding any oddballs that kind of hang in there.
Had a conversation with a buddy last night about how hard it is to design board games where the campaign feels like players influence the outcome. Thoughts? I don't really think it's hard. It just takes more material. You need to have, if you're going to have things that branching storyline or or consequences for other parts of later in the campaign, you need something to track it. You need more. If it's going to be a branch, you need to have more scenarios designed or more possibilities of different variations for the future quests. I personally don't like putting a lot of thought into complex campaigns because it's almost like sometimes wasted effort because people don't finish them. People don't play enough of them. There's very small percentage of groups that actually play through big Gloomhaven campaigns and stuff like that. Lots of people play a few games and then they can't get back together. Things get in the way. They want to try new games. So we're much more interested in finding doing smaller campaigns. So I don't think it's hard to have this in a smaller campaign, have things influence other things. It's all just about how much work you want to put into it.
Yeah, and I really think that it's all close to impossible to build a very meaningful, strong, and hooked narrative over the course of a sprawling campaign with all these different odds. Because, people will always rave about how much they love the expansive nature of Gloomhaven and putting these stickers out on the board and building this map. And I only use that as an example because people always refer back to that as a big campaign experience, which we get the appeal of for sure. It's just the actual strength of the narrative, I think personally weakens a bit because you have to loosen the reins a lot to allow for that kind of sandbox nature. So when we do a story, campaign-driven stuff, we want to make sure that narrative is strong enough to be felt and have a conclusive ending that actually has some substance there and has some resolution.
Do you both enjoy the same aspects of designing or even playing games, or do you have different loves? Anything in particular in playing or design? Is there anything in playing or design that one of you loves but the other hates?
I think you hate AI stuff, or don't hate it, but
I don't enjoy designing the AI side of our co-op games. I enjoy the player side more, and I think Brady enjoys doing the AI stuff more.
Yeah, there's exceptions obviously, here and there, but because for example, I love designing fighter decks and Street Masters, but I think I almost prefer to design stages. I love building those different hooks in those stages and everything. So I think I have I might have like a higher threshold for how much I want to design in the AI end, even though I don't always enjoy it because you have to design some punishing stuff on the enemy side, and I always like to focus on having high power levels for the players, so they feel like they're very powerful and have a lot of options. So it's a struggle, but I mean we get it done. So
yeah, I don't know if there's much that I absolutely hate when it comes to design or playing games that he loves. I don't think there's any of that extremes. Yeah, I don't think so. I will say that I love miniature board games, and he doesn't really care about those. So
it depends on the theme. Like I played a lot of Warhammer in my day because I like the old world, but I refuse to play 40K or Age of
Sigmar.
Sigmar.
What was that? Oh, yeah, best Euro for you. Best Euro, probably Orleans.
Orleans.
I guess it's the tie for that one.
And let people consider Pandemic and Euro. I've heard that before. Like I don't know. I mean, I like Pandemic.
But do you like Pandemic more than you like Orleans?
I mean, I like the co-op expansion of Orleans better than Pandemic. I like
Pandemic for like new players and stuff like that. Like if I was getting my family into gaming, I'll just.
Well, I think it's also just like the long term, like the persistence of it. I think Pandemic has been persistent longer, but I do love the co-op Orleans.
So you're saying you're not going to make a game about buying, selling spices, and creating trade routes for lumber?
We didn't say that.
That's trading spices. I think that's pretty fair to say that's gonna be low on our priority list.
But I mean, that could be a piece of it. Like I do have Euro tendencies. We have ideas in that. We don't focus in it, but someday we might have the time, the bandwidth to do it. So,
Road Warrior and Fury Road are practically different universes. Okay,
I'll believe you. Yeah, we're so unfamiliar with a lot of the Mad Max. I mean, I saw the new Mad Max, which was fun, but that's about it.
Great campaign once again, guys. Are there any additional add-ons left to reveal this week of the campaign? Nothing that I can. I mean, there might be one, but it's not like a big mind-blowing one. It's just
it wasn't like the first four or anything like that.
Nothing gameplay, like nothing that's like new gameplay. Hello, I'm from Canary Islands in Spain. I would like to ask. Well, heroes have their own equipment. They're starting equipment in their deck. But if you're playing campaign mode or story mode, there are ways to.
Those are different though.
Yeah,
this is for campaign.
In campaign mode, after a quest, you will shop and you will train. If you win the quest, but previously you can do those things easier. Otherwise, you have to spend supply to do it. But shopping lets you reveal cards in the equipment deck, and each hero can take one. That's the equivalent. That's basically what shopping is. And then training is you can upgrade your hero card. So that's what happens in upgrading your character in the campaign.
The story deck and the story guide will drive how that works in the story because you might play campaigns where money is a thing and you have to track money. So you have to actually spend money to do things. A lot of other things will abstract it. So it all depends on the flavor of the campaign. If it's like an urban campaign or an urban story where you're in a city and there's like Thieves Guild, money might be a very crucial thing where you're tracking that looking on the story sheet or something. But right now, the main two stories, the base game story and the Ruins of Arkenspire story, they'll have more of a fluid, shopping step or whatever. So it'll be all narrative driven. Like you might meet somebody, you might help a shop owner, he'll give you a discount or something. So it'll be all narrative driven.
The hard part about a sitcom board game is writing jokes that last. Yeah, but old cheesy jokes are almost funnier too.
It's all at the delivery.
What about a board using the HeroQuest original board? We have no interest in doing like straight up HeroQuest recreations.
It's a fine line because we want people to definitely feel the spirit of Hero.
Feelings that HeroQuest.
Yeah, but the game itself, we don't want to anchor our design to HeroQuest as a product at all because it's just they're so different.
One specific example are those one space hallways that block up players can't it just
makes a train.
Yeah, it basically makes what's the word I'm looking for?
Marching orders.
No, well that and also if you're
Deadlock.
in a car. Traffic jam, like a traffic jam in the hallway where you just can't move because there's one little goblin in the way and you keep rolling misses. Like, we just don't like that individual. Like,
yeah. So there's no reason for us to really.
We got a few big ones I passed up here. How long are you already working on Alter Quest? We've been working on Alter Quest. I mean, we've had ideas churning for Alter Quest for years.
Yeah, I think it started like last year.
The development started at the beginning of this year, actually.
Well,
like
the development. Yeah, the actual like idea started. Back after Brook City or something.
Yeah, we've had ideas churning.
Yeah,
ever since we've been doing MDS games,
we just track them in documents and we just kind of develop them in the background, and then we hit them hard, and then that's when things start really happening.
Thanks for creating this game. I've never been as hyped about a game as Alter Quest. Thank you.
That's good to hear.
Glad to hear that. Feel I'll bring back the same feeling as Hero Quest gave me a long time ago. That's the goal, but with a modern and elegant design. It's very thrilling to think about. All the amazing stuff you guys put on top of the system. Yeah, we have lots of ideas. Hopefully we can make them all. Have you played Undercity or Widower's Wood by Privateer Press? What do you think of the AI and the co-op in that game? I have both those games. I was excited about them, and I was very let down by them.
I actually liked.
I liked certain aspects.
Yeah,
of it.
there were a lot of aspects I liked about it. I think overall, I thought it boiled down too much to just like a very tactical combat between.
It's like a skirmish. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't feel like there was enough interesting things about combat. It was basically just like guys pouring in constantly.
Yeah, and it suffered from the same problem we had with a lot of these dungeon crawls, where you set up this like elaborate board, but it almost doesn't matter because what it comes down to is just like you're just moving a couple spaces and hitting something. So there's not like a sense of purpose in the place you're in. So that's.
Yeah, I actually have it all, and I was trying to sell it, but nobody wanted.
There were a lot of cool things. I liked how they had like their little own upgrade decks and stuff. But again, it suffered from that whole thing where like it only shines over the course of the campaign, where you're like leveling your character up, and I just didn't really hook me enough to really care about going through all that. So
right now, it seems like features are going to show up in a completely random order. Are you planning to make features draw thematically linked somehow? Yeah, Questx can easily call out specific things that we need to do or stories.
Story decks specifically. Story decks will say place this feature 3 cards down, and this is John's alchemist desk you're trying to find with this note in the drawer. So there's stuff like that that's very much going to be narratively tied in the story decks. And the quest decks themselves will also sometimes specify maybe a certain piece of furniture is used for this quest. So we don't just build a formula and let the thing go. We customize these things to make them feel, to bring that variety out.
Yeah, that's why it's always hard for us to convey these MDS games, especially Alter Quest, because
there's nothing like that out there. Really.
Yeah, there's not a lot of structure like in the rule book. This is how this specific thing is always going to work. There's this framework of rules, and all these cards can do different things. You can always the quest decks can change up the game completely if you wanted to. Like, this. In this room, heroes can't do this, or heroes can do this, or there's a hole in this room that goes into this other side of the door. Like, it just, so many different things you can do with it. It's kind of unlimited. It'd be cool if the feature deck could represent if you were in a castle or dungeon or a sewer. Also, what about different versions of feature cards? So different versions of feature cards wouldn't work as well because you'd have to, it increases setup, because you can only have one copy of like the fountain, the blessed fountain, because that miniature represents that card. And now, that's not to say that Quest can specify, like, when you draw the Blessed Fountain, it's actually the Cursed Fountain. The card overrides it. That's totally doable, and like I've said, Quest cards can change everything.
Yeah, and again, story cards always are the exception to the rule, because there could be a new feature card in the story deck where you use the Alchemist desks, but it's this one guy's Alchemist desk and has a different ability. But that being said, we don't want to add too many like alternates, because that takes away from the whole like meta experience you have, where once you learn the game, you don't have to read all the cards individually. You just know what the cards do based on their pictures, your experience with those cards. So throwing in variants of those makes it more difficult to just keep the game flowing,
Kickstarter games could be going through the same bubble comics and action figures in the 90s. Do you feel the boom is near a cliff? If so, how do small publishers adapt? I personally feel like it's, as Kickstarter continues to grow, continues to go on as it is, I think like smaller publishers, people who are like basically, I have an idea for a game, I want to make it by myself, that is probably going to slim down a lot, because it's so much. Kickstarter is drawing in so many publishers, like for example Blacklist, who is a growing publisher who can deliver high quality games on time and has the track record for it. You'll see less of like, my cousin Mike is gonna go to Kickstarter because he has an idea for a game, but he has nothing to show for it, and he's never had experience making a game, and it's a huge risk. I think you're gonna see a lot less success in those regards.
Yeah, and I think that one of the big things that I get I have a pet peeve about talking about this bubble thing with board games, because like board games are still just such a tiny thing, and even though there's all this money in Kickstarter, there's not like money being
There's not like corporate money, video game money. For example. That's a good comparison
because action figures were like, I mean, those were a phenomenon in the '90s. So like there was money, like lots of big money being pumped in, and there were so many big players. And I mean, the board games have their share of big players and everything, but it's nowhere near the scale of where a bubble would burst, because it's this gradual, increasing market growing where people keep slowly getting into board games. Like our neighbors, we meet our neighbors like, oh, I like board games, and they're just getting into it. So it's just this thing that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I think that the backers, the Kickstarter backers, are getting smarter. They know what to back. They know what to watch out for. They support what they know is going to deliver. So I think that's going to remedy itself, where you won't have a lot of these kind of I don't know, not fraudulent all the time, but maybe not necessarily up to snuff Kickstarters, trying to gobble up a bunch of money then bailing. So I think it's just a fluctuation type thing. So there is a growth there, and it is changing constantly. But
it's all conjecture too. Like
it's all just guesswork and stuff. But
I never know what's gonna happen. But we still see Kickstarters pop up with making $4 million or whatever. Like it just, you never know what people are gonna be attracted to. People like to jump on the hype train, whatever catches people's attention. The Easter egg from the Street Masters movie stage is Count Lorik, right?
Yeah.
He will appear to be dead in the Alter Quest lore, though. Will we see him in the flesh outside of Honora and the Vampire Baby?
So you'll have to play through Ruins of Arkenspire, but I mean, there's an established lore where Arkenspire was the site of the first altar. So after Lorik was defeated by this warlord named Kretch, he was defeated at this site at Arkenspire, which is like the site of all kinds of different things. This is where the Doomchild first came to Riddica and built this huge monument, and down below it links into the Arkenhold, which is like this spiritual prison where these restless spirits are, kept safe. And it's where the Doomchild herself is kept bound because she exists between life and death. There's Lorik is a very important character, and his remains are lost. And you'll see this mentioned throughout the stories. It's a kind of a MacGuffin throughout the stories, because people are looking for Lorik's remains. The thralls, their purpose in life is to find the remains, feed them to Frederick, and he's the new heir to their dynasty. He's the new, he's Lorik the Second Coming. So Lorik is a very important person. So I wouldn't be surprised if you learn more about him as you play.
Mr. Solo Mode Games wants to know what aspects of Ultra Quest we are most proud of, and where do you see the game going from here?
I think personally, I mean, it just sounds kind of weird because it's like, it's not really game design related, because there's a lot of things we're proud of game design wise. I just really like the lore. I like building the world, so I'm really proud of a lot of stuff that goes into that. A lot of the lore that's gonna be in the stories and everything like that. So I'd have to say it's probably my most proud contribution, or the contribution I'm most proud of. From a gameplay standpoint, though, I think it's just currently right now it's the encounters, because I'm currently working on those, so I like the encounters a lot, which if we have time we can talk about those a little more. But
there's been a request for it, so after we tap out most of the questions we can talk encounters. Will we see a twin lurker? I don't know about that. Most of I think it's not really a spoiler, but I'll say in the Kickstarter, the majority of the lurkers you'll see are tied to threat decks. We're not going to be doing specific isolated lurkers, mainly because there's a lot of them. There's already a lot of lurkers already, and also we might in the future do an expansion of here's a lurker pack or something. Mainly because we have the stretch goals, planned out in a certain way that we're going to get the most amount of content to backers that would have made sense as products anyway. So that's just our plan. The art scene for Ultra Quest is very good. Thank you. Can't wait for the game. Neither can we. Lady Lyle Valentine just pledged for Ultra Quest. Thanks. Back in the first hour. Thanks, Pete. Is there any game mode with multiple altars at the same time, maybe for 4 players? So it's not a game mode. That's not to say there won't be a quest that might utilize that. Right now, the majority of the quests, there's a basic setup for the game that the quests can modify. The basic setup is you shuffle the altar cards and put one in play. that's the altar in that dungeon. And altars are pretty impactful, so it's probably too much to have like 2 altar cards in play because they function differently.
Yeah, it weakens the uniqueness of that altar. Yeah. But there could be a quest where there's like some decoy altars.
Well, I mean, even in the cleansing, there are 4 altar shards.
Yeah.
Like you have to
but yeah, there could be uses for the altar miniatures where it's like, well, these might be like decoy altars. You have to find the right ones. So.
All right, let's talk encounters real quick. So encounters are single board games.
I know this is in the visuals.
You can grab it, for example. In Ruins of Arcspire, you're going to get 2 double-sided encounter boards. Each side of an encounter board has a counter deck associated with it. We have a prototype here. We didn't get the art done. Like, we were waiting for the final art. We showed art in progress on the update. But this is an example of the prototype tile we have for the...
This is not to scale, but this is an idea. Can I kind of tell you how this works? Because people have requested a playthrough. We don't want a playthrough on this. We don't think that's as useful. I think it's actually more useful for us to deep dive into this, and explain it. So you'll have an encounter tile, you'll have your encounter deck. It's a small deck of cards that guides this encounter. In this encounter, there's the whole shtick of this one is there's a campfire here that's dying out. You have your starting spaces here where the heroes start. You can start any of those spaces. The whole theme of this one is...
Before you get into the theme, though, every encounter has, it follows the same rules as Altar Quest. The changes are that, for example, you don't use lurkers. You basically, anytime you have to draw a lurker card, you're going to draw a threat card instead. If you can't activate a threat on your turn, one might come out because there's no doors, for example. This whole tile is a room, so any cards that say someone in your room... So things like that. There's little modifications.
There's little technicalities,
but everything else functions the same as a normal game.
Yeah, and because there's no features, feature cards you draw, there's always going to be one feature card in the encounter deck. For example, the feature in this one is the tree stumps. So these tree stumps here. So the whole theme of this one is you're resting for the night. You have a little campfire. So all these threat spaces here are the shadows where enemies are coming in. Your campfire has a limited range, which is like the ring of light it has. So every every quest token on the campfire increases the range by 1. So if there's no quest tokens on this campfire, you lose the encounter because you have to flee because you can't see anything. You got to run and you're pretty much defeated. So
it starts with 1.
Yeah. So you want to go to these stumps here and search them for some firewood and bring it to the fire to keep the fire alive. So every time you add a quest token, it's going to increase the range of the fire, let you see better. So every time you move out of the firelight, you have to suffer. I forget what the bad thing that happens. You have to draw a threat or something. I think the first time you move out.
Yeah. Each time a hero enters a dark space during their act phase, the first time, that hero draws 1 threat card.
Yeah. So
each enemy in the dark space gets bonus defense.
Yeah. So it's going to be harder to fight in the dark. You want to avoid walking in the dark, but you kind of have to go out there and venture and get into these. Get to the stumps and search for some firewood. You can exhaust a weapon, like for example, you might have an axe, but it could be any weapon like a club or something to help break up the wood and grab some wood. So it's all about feeding that fire while fending off the enemies. Now the overall goal in most of these encounters is to defeat the boss. So you want to actually... What's that? The villain, sorry. So you want to actually discard cards from the villain deck because you want to avoid those bad events because they're more punishing in this small encounter. So you want to get those cards out of the game, discard them, and you want to bring the villain out quicker so you're ready for him. So everything you do positive in the encounter will usually accelerate discarding those villain decks. For example, if you put a lot of firewood on here and it's bright enough, every time you put an extra one on, you'll discard a villain deck so you're seeing much better. You got a better lay of the land. There's no surprise. So you want to bring him out, fight him, and beat him. There's also other things, like for example, there's packs here. You can go search your packs for some supplies because you might have something laying around you're not ready for. So this is like an example of how one encounter might work. And they're, like I said, they're intended to be a quicker play experience, smaller footprint, and it kind of creates a whole new gameplay experience because it's a very fixed theme,
Essentially, it's a second game. You basically it follows the same rules. But this is a shorter game. It's more of a skirmish game.
It's a little more puzzly. There's a little more puzzle choices to make. Yeah. And for example, I'm doing the other one right. I was actually tweaking the other one today. This one's called the ambush, or the camp ambush. I was working on trouble. There's trouble at the inn. So that one, there's guests pouring out from upstairs trying to flee the inn because there's a fight going on, and there's all these threat spaces all around the board representing broken windows where enemies are pouring in. And here heroes have to go and get chairs and tables to block those windows and help escort the guests out. Because too many guests get defeated, the heroes are held accountable for that and suffer the consequences, so you lose the encounter. So you want to make sure you can get people out, and every time you get a person out of the inn, you get to discard a villain card, so you accelerate that boss coming out, the villain coming out to fight them. So every encounter's got its own little themes, usually one or two little mechanical things that drive the overall encounter. And we have a distraction over here. I can't really hear myself talk.
Just make sure you shut the garage door. Okay.
All right. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown of how encounters work, and each one's going to be fully unique, different theme. Those are 2 examples, and I probably teased that one I shouldn't have because they're going to be hidden in the stories. But
this is a great way for you to finally address this. What modes of transportation exist in Runa? I assume horses don't exist since the steering.
Horses definitely exist, man.
So people have been talking about this. They couldn't believe that the steering would ride a horse. So
steering have very huge respect for horses,
yes,
because they might have horse heads, but they are not horses. They are not a breed of horse. They are their own people. They have their own civilization.
I mean, it's kind of like saying if somebody saw us, the world that existed, and thought it was weird that monkeys existed. It's like monkeys have, like some primates have human-like faces, and we can get into evolution like that. But just because the steern have horse,
and we don't ride monkeys, but still,
just because steern have these horse-like heads. And just so you know, like the art, none of the Kickstarter art is final art, so we kind of have some tweaks to Van Geyser to make them look more how we envisioned. But the steern, Brady can talk about the steering, but they don't ride horses in a disrespect. They
yeah, and they don't typically ride horses. Like they might, like Van Geyser would probably ride a horse if he came across one and it was a mode of transportation in Eretica. But where the steering are, they don't ride horses around. They don't they might have horses pulling wagons or something out of respect, not like as this is a workhorse, he's doing all the work for us. So they have. And I can get into the whole society of steern. It's it's all broken down in the lore Bible. But horses exist. It's not that weird. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think most people are convinced that horses wouldn't exist because of Van Geyser.
But there are other modes of transportation.
And also, we should specify that the steern are not like a super common race in the setting. Like they are kind of an isolated race that live on their own.
That's why Van Geyser is so bizarre, because he's not in the pyramids, worshiping the elder things that the steern usually worships. So yeah, they're kind of a not like they're not threatened to be extinct or anything like that. They're not an endangered species of people, but they have a very small civilization. They suffered a huge cataclysmic what's that word I'm looking for? Disaster early on. So they're just kind of isolated on this island by themselves. So.
All right, so I think that's all the questions we had, and I think we covered most. Was there anything else we didn't cover yet?
We were going to talk. We talked about counters plenty. We were going to mention the stretch goals. I think we already kind of mentioned the stretch goals thing about how it's both hero limitations and.
Yeah, I mean, as people talk about stretch goals all the time. It's good to remember that these are all like free stretch goals. We're not like unlocking more add-ons for you that like options you have to buy. We'll get to it, don't worry. But we have a plan for stretch goals. We basically wanted to do we wanted stretch goals to be unlocked in the most exciting way for us that we thought would influence the game the best way. We want to unlock free content, like free expansions and stuff like that we plan to make in the future anyway. But if we can give them to you for free early as stretch goals, we want to do that. We give you as much content as possible. Nothing in the stretch goals are like you need this or like that. These are all just free bonuses. Yeah, so don't get too caught up in like, oh well, they're doing this instead of that. We have our plans. We do move things around to give backwards what they want. Like for example, we added the mercenary hero because people wanted more heroes, and we wanted to do more heroes as well. We planned for heroes, but we also thought that okay, well, there's an opportunity to use this sculpt we already have to make a hero out of it. So we do things on the fly like that, but we do have a planned stretch goal map that we want to try to stick to as close as possible.
And a friendly reminder, just from the perception of Blacklist, I know there's this understanding that a lot of publishers will intentionally build their stretch goals to round out a base game. Yeah. We've never done that. We always have a product. Here's a game. The stretch goals are literally just free things, like free things that we could hopefully build expansions on later, you know, like to include an expansion that might go to retail. But we're not like sacrificing certain things that would be in the game otherwise. Like this is the game we want to make. We put it up there, boxed as is, and the stretch goals are meant to just enhance that. You know, add cool stuff, be exciting little rewards for backers. So don't feel like you're missing out on something that you might have otherwise gotten because stretch goals are rearranged. They're literally just bonus things. It's just the icing on the cake, you know, that we hope you want to eat.
We've got a few more questions. Were there moments during the development of Alter Quest where you had to go with a compromise because you didn't agree on a design choice? Maybe even had to put the opposite opinions. Yeah, opposite opinions about it. I feel like with the way that the features work, how the features populate the quest area, Brady hates it.
I want to find a solution, but there just wasn't like
it takes up space.
Yeah, there wasn't a better way to anchor those rooms that we could think of because we want things on the table. We don't want to have to look up things and like reference things. So everything should be on the table. It's not ideal for me to have like a big quest area, but it works given how the board lays out. So it's never been a huge problem. It's just it's kind of a compromise because I just didn't want to have a ton of cards out.
It looks like a lot of information, but you only reference those features if you're next to them. So it's like you don't need to utilize that text every turn. It's just here are the cards to reference where they're on the board, and we needed something to mark specific rooms. Like for example, oh, this room has the alchemy table, so the alchemy card, anything attached to it, is affecting this room. So it works for gameplay. But we didn't have a better solution for it than just putting it in the quest area and like certain compromise like that where it doesn't compromise our overall vision, but it compromises our ideal tables, like how we'd like the table to function, But again, we don't want people looking up in a book to reference all this stuff either.
This is the best way we could think of how to make features actually matter, like mechanically.
Maybe a touchy analogy, but is the Steern's respect for horses similar to the religious respect for cows found in South Asia?
It could be. I'm not super familiar with all the stuff behind that. I know of that. I know that there's that. Cows are holy.
I guess a better way is like do Steern believe they are descendants from horses, or horses are descendants from them?
There's different beliefs within the Steern Society about the horses in general. But like I said, horses are not kept as commonly as in Aridica, because Aridica horses are it's a medieval European fantasy setting. So if the horses exist. The Steern actually have more common mounts they use. We'll talk about that later. We don't have any art to show, so it's not exciting me to tell you, oh, it's this type of animal. But they ride other things, but they still have horses. Horses exist. They're just treated differently than other mounts, and it's not like out of a respect thing. It's just they view horses as kind of like not inferior versions of themselves. Like they are better versions of horses. They just have a bond, a natural bond.
All these references I just don't get. Would Beta, Ray, Bill ride a horse? I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know. But another way to think of it is like this. A lot of people that commonly, I think it's safe to say common belief is like people love dogs. Dogs, man's best friend. Dogs and people and dogs have this bond, and dogs have this bond with their owner. It's like it's more like that kind of bond that Steern share with horses to a higher degree because they just have. And it's weird because Steern aren't like, they don't gallop around. They're people with these horse-like heads. So they just have a visual similarity to them, not like a structural, or functioning similarity to horses.
I'm amazed at how
it's funny how I did not expect so many deep conversations about Steern because they're just like, I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, it's also, I think it's anytime people see a new race that they're not used to, it is jarring. I know some people just don't like him, but don't play him. Luckily he's free.
The Steern aren't common, so he's an oddball.
I'm amazed at how encounters look. Seems so funny, and I also love that they are varied. I'm assuming the funny thing is Brady's genius pun is what is funny, but
in trouble. Yeah,
I'm assuming.
Well, they are funny. They look fun.
Stretch goals have been awesome. Stick to your plan. Thanks for the stretch goal philosophy. Yeah, it's hard to read a lot of things online. People overanalyzing the stretch goals and criticizing what they think would be best for the game. But again, that's one of the best things about going to Origins, because we could take a step away from the internet and see, talk to people in person and let them see the game themselves and play through it round. And and see their excitement. It's a lot different when you're seeing things in person, talking to people. You know, you realize that there are people making games. It's not just some big corporation trying to make money. You know, we're just making games we want to make. We think we're making fun games. So it's nice to be reminded of that every now and then. But stretch goals, yes, we just want to make the most exciting stretch goals we can for a game that would work the best for it. And we figure since we played a lot, we might have a good opinion on what would make it better. But then again, there are some things that aren't going to appeal to other people. Like, for example, a token being upgraded to a miniature some people might just not care about it, but I think it's cool. Like, I want to have Huey on my board. We're walking around with this old man figure. I want that. So, Beta Ray Bill is from the Thor comics. Okay.
Thor's one that I like, you know, especially since the MCU. I like the character Thor a lot, but I'm so naive about the comics.
With the possibility of being a final live session in this campaign, any cool thing you want to reveal, all of us sitting here together? I will, even though Brady's going on a little vacation on the weekend, so he'll be out of town when the Kickstarter ends. I'm sure he'll be online, but he won't be here. But I might be able to do like a little live stream Q&A by myself.
You can do those on Facebook. Like, you can do multiples. Like,
maybe, but we'll see. People have been asking if we want to reveal multiple stretch goals. I've actually been suggesting that early on because I figured, you know, we're going to hit them anyway. But now that we're getting toward the end, it's dangerous because if you show too much and don't hit it, people are just going to get upset because they don't get it. So we're going to basically just stick to the reveal one. I feel like the last 48 hours might be a little crazy. There's a lot of people following the campaign.
10,000 people?
I don't know if we should be saying the numbers to people because then they get, you know, could be disappointing or whatever. Just
but still, that's
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people following the campaign, and
it's so secretive nowadays.
it's not secretive. It's just I don't know. Like, I don't want to have false expectations for people. Like, I just want them to be surprised. So it might get crazy. So just tell your friends, get as many people into the campaign as you can. I'll probably eat some pizza. You guys have handled the complaints with grace and tact. Thank you. It's because we curse off screen.
Who's Grace and Tact?
I don't know. I'm Grace. Thanks for making what looks to be an awesome game. Thanks for backing it. Yeah, it is a lot of followers. So there's lots of people that came up to us at Origins and wanted to see the game. And they're like, yeah, no, I saw it on Kickstarter. I'm kind of waffling back and forth. So they're watching it, and I guess people just like to wait till the last couple days. I don't understand. It's crazy myself because when I see a game I like, I just back it, and then if I end up not liking it, then I just cancel my pledge.
One thing I didn't expect was people who came up and they were like checking out Brook City and they're chatting about it, asking about it. I said, yeah, this is the one's on Kickstarter now. And they're like, yeah, I've had too many fantasy games, but I'm really interested in this, talking about Brook City. So there is that possibility too, where it's just people who just don't have that tendency to want to check out a new fantasy game, even though it might be different than what they're used to. So we'll see how it ends. Like, it's exciting to think about how the last couple of days might go, but we'll see. Tempering expectations.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. Get back to designing. I'm on a roll for this quest deck. I want to finish it up today. And then we will chat on the Kickstarter. See you guys next week for the final day. 1 week left. We're very excited for the Kickstarter to end because we want to focus all of our time and energy on designing the game and playtesting and getting you the best game we possibly can. So Kickstarters are fun and all, but they're exhausting, take up a lot of our time.
Sorry, Dan. What? He said, I just got it here.
Well, luckily we're gonna archive it, so you can watch it all.
You can stare at our pretty faces for what, 60? Is it 84 minutes?
Unless you have, if you can say yes, if you have a question that you're just dying to ask us, but otherwise we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
I have to eat now.
We ate super early, so.
All right. Thanks for checking it out, everybody. We'll chat with you maybe next week. We'll see if I can get on the chat somehow, but